All right. So take a look at this first channel. I mean, if this picture of this guy doesn't tip you off that something's not right, then I don't know what to tell you. 1 second. But nonetheless, kind of makes sense, this picture, once you see the content. That's the first thing you need to do. Always check the channel to see what videos they've had before. Okay, check to see. And this channel is market analysis expert interviews. Well, let's see the experts. Let's take a look here. Oh, here we go. So you can just read this first sentence and tell this guy's an absolute con man. Disinfo con man. You already know. Well, you should know. If you don't, then hopefully you'll learn here shortly. Once you read a sentence like this, you know what the content's going to be about. Let me go ahead and read it. We live in a time where the world is currently undergoing the biggest transformation of wealth in human history. This is the whole wealth transfer, the greatest transfer of wealth. This is the whole nonsense that the gold pumpers spewed, they pushed out a few years ago. And the greatest transfer of wealth in history actually has already happened, and that's with the stock market. The stock market has minted so many millionaires, new millionaires. I mean, just this year alone. So, Capital Cosm's mission is to arm you with news and commentary in the best way possible to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to invest and create capital. Okay? Invest and create capital. So what are they doing? Well, take a look. They're interviewing a bunch of gold-pumping crackpots and con artists. Now, I don't know. I can't identify every single person from here. But I know that once you identify a few of the kingpins, you know what this channel is about. We've already got the tip-off, right? This transformation, wealth, and so in other words, wow, it's so much money. It's there. I'm going to help you get the money, right? Fucking con man. He's e-begging here. So, who are the kingpins? Well, Doug Casey, and this guy, he can't, I'm waiting to celebrate the day that Doug Casey is no longer with us. Absolute career con man, gold pumping, disinfo, scam artist. That's what he is. I could go into this charlatan. I've already exposed him many years ago. I'm not going to talk about him today. It's too much to get into, but he's obviously one of the kingpins, one of the disgusting kingpins behind a lot of the deceit and scams in the gold industry, disinformation, complete horseshit. Then you've got Rick Rule, another kingpin, con man, who was working with Eric Sprott. Eric Sprott, a complete, total, disgusting, filthy scam artist. I mean, I can't even get into it here. It's just too long and too lengthy. I've exposed these guys. They manipulate gold stocks, silver stocks. They manipulate the price of gold and silver. They get the stooges to buy and to push it up when they're selling. And then you got one of the absolute fraudster here, Martin Armstrong. This guy is an absolute fake, fraud, felon, liar, illiterate, fucking idiot. Martin Armstrong is the world's worst market forecasters in history. He's an absolute fucking idiot. I could do several videos on him. I've exposed him many years ago. And all the disinfo people, they don't, they think, well, because Martin Armstrong's got a lot of conspiracies. This guy teamed up, folks. In order to really understand the big circle jerk, you got to realize libertarians are involved. The libertarian movement is a huge scam movement. Aside from a lot of their crackpot ideals, they are involved in the gold pumping circuit and a lot of scams. Martin Armstrong is part of that, and he was a gold pumper before, and he kind of changed his tune a little bit. So now he tries to pretend like he's bullish or bearish on gold. But back several years ago, he was like all these other guys calling for, $10,000 an ounce gold, 15 years ago, so on and so forth. But Martin Armstrong teamed up with the Mises Institute, which is a libertarian operation, boiler room. I'm not going to get into why libertarians is a scam, but basically they're kind of the opposite of what they claim to stand for. They're actually aligned with corporate fascism. That's right. They're aligned with the big corporations. They want to pretend that they are for freedom, when in reality, they want to tear down laws that protect consumers, that protect workers, in order for corporations to benefit. That's right. If you don't believe that, do a little research into who was behind the whole Tea Party movement, so on and so forth. So Martin Armstrong, I think he paid the Mises Institute to create some documentary, some guy called Market Forecaster. And supposedly some conspiracy little documentary where basically saying that he was put in jail because the government wanted his secret market forecasting system. And you have people that believe this shit. Martin Armstrong is one of the worst market forecasters in world history. First of all, he knows absolutely zero about the markets. This is a guy who was a commodities trader. He wasn't a fund manager, that is, say, an equities fund manager or a bond fund manager. He was trading commodities and futures. That's like fucking gambling. No doubt about it. Okay? And you're not going to have much of a chance these days unless you're dealing with some type of an edge. Martin Armstrong, back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when you didn't have all this, high frequency trading, all these hedge funds doing all this type of thing, Martin Armstrong still was a disaster. And according to the FBI, Martin Armstrong's trading was so horrendous, he was losing so much money, they couldn't believe it. So what did he do? He created a Ponzi scheme. And he pulled wool over the eyes of the Japanese investors, and he fooled them. And he went to jail because he didn't want to comply with the request of the court. You can look into it. Basically, Martin Armstrong stole a lot of gold. He had a lot of gold he didn't want to turn over. Of course, he's going to claim otherwise. He's going to claim it's not true. So he sat in jail for about 7 years in contempt of court. And why would someone sit in jail for 7 years? He claims he didn't have the gold. Of course he had the gold. And that's where he funded his little documentary. You could look into it. And so the guy's a complete fraud. In addition to being a felon and a complete useless trader, all of a sudden he can forecast the stock market now. I've got his track record. It's terrible. He's created all this stuff. Oh, I've got this Socrates. It predicts this. It's a fucking fraud. And what he does, he makes all these videos where, and he writes these articles where he pretends people submit questions, and they don't submit questions. He submits the questions. It's an opportunity for him to promote himself and to create a false track record. He also, whenever he does interviews, you'll notice he's also name dropping. Oh, well, I advise the Federal Reserve, claiming he does all these things. Folks, nobody with any credibility is ever going to pay attention to this guy. He's a fucking loser. He's like the lowest level. That's Martin Armstrong. Okay. So another kingpin, gold pumping kingpin, Rick Rule, Doug Casey, and I'm assuming these guys are all in the same. This is what this channel's about. Okay. That's what this channel's about. And you got this Andy Schechtman as well. Oh, here's Dave Cullum. I'm going to expose this guy. Dave Cullum, he's a chemistry professor, and this guy thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. This guy's a fucking idiot. Hey, Dave, get back to the fucking lab, boy. You don't know shit about the investment world. Dave Cullum was promoted by Zero Hedge a long time ago. Remember, Zero Hedge, they banned me. They don't want to talk because I'm not a guy. I'm not pushing the whole doomsday by gold, right? Dave Cullum's so stupid. You can find the videos. You should do it for your own homework. Find him on YouTube. He's actually telling everyone that the Roth IRA is a scam. It's always a bad idea. There's no circumstances where it's a good idea. His argument's fucking stupid. I'm going to completely fucking debunk that and turn this guy and embarrass the shit out of him, showing him what a fucking idiot he is. Okay? I've already looked into it. I mean, it's just so obvious. Think about that. This guy thinks he knows so much. I guess because he looks around and sees a bunch of, part of the problem is he hangs out with Porter Stansberry guys. He hangs out with copy editing clowns. And he hangs out with conspiracy wackos. So, of course, he thinks, well, I'm a smart guy, right? Because he looks at these guys that are idiots. But I wanted to mention that. So who do you have here? Jim Rogers, another one. I mean, I'm the only person in the world who understood Jim Rogers' fucking grift, his scam. And I explained it to the world. Jim Rogers ain't no legendary investor. Jim Rogers ain't no great investor. Jim Rogers has got one of the worst track records I've ever seen. He's a contrarian indicator, just like Peter Schiff, just like Harry Dent. Okay? Jim Rogers makes his money through media appearances. Jim Rogers makes his money trashing the best assets, the best capital markets in the world, U.S. assets, U.S. capital markets. With the whole doomsday, buy gold, he promotes China and Russia. Why? Because he's also getting paid for these doomsday speaking events. He's getting paid to be on boards of shady ass and many times fraudulent companies listed in Canada, mostly resource-based, China and Russia. Okay? That's how he makes his fucking money. And selling stupid books that don't have anything to do with investing, basically. Other than his one promoting China at the wrong time. Okay? That's right. He promotes China at the fucking peak. Anyway, I mean, these guys are so, folks, once again, if you want to spot the army of con artists, all you got to do is find one and see who they're hanging out with. Here we got Adam Taggart. I explained this guy's fucking grift. Adam, take a look at his channels, complete fraudster. Tell him I said so too. All these motherfuckers, I'll take them all on. Boom! They'll run like a scared you know what. They're going to run away from me like a scared you know what. Okay? Because they know better. All of them. All of them. Let's go, motherfuckers. Live. Neutral platform. Smack you the fuck down with the truth. All of them, folks. You think I don't know this game? I've been doing this for almost 20 years. They all know who I am, and they run shitless. Scared shitless. Because their idea, their whole pitch is to speak to suckers. To speak to suckers. You understand? Make sure and con the suckers. Make sure and never get yourself in a position where you're being exposed for the fraud and the disinformation con artist that you are. Adam Taggart started out with Chris Martenson, another fucking scam artist, liar, piece of shit. Chris Martenson told everybody, by the way, 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago, he was the vice president of Pfizer. And he saw the world ending. We're running out of everything, and he wanted to stop and save the world. So he quit his job and wanted to help everybody. Think about that. You got to be a fucking nutcase to believe that. You got a guy who wants to work for Pfizer. He wants to work to do whatever he can to suppress results to make sure they sell more drugs. And this is a guy now that wants to help the people. First of all. Second of all, as far as I can tell, he never worked a day in his life in the fucking lab. Ever. Okay? He was in the business side from day one. Number three, he was never the VP of Pfizer. He's a fucking liar. He did that, and he posted all these pictures. Oh, I was making a lot of money. I was on this yacht to lure people in. That's what they do. He was never the VP of Pfizer. I talked about that many years ago. He's a fucking liar. And I thought, well, maybe he's a VP. So in other words, he positioned it as, oh, well, I'm the VP. No, there's many VPs in companies. You all know that, right? Depending upon the type of company structure. He wasn't even a fucking VP of Pfizer. He was working at a company, some small company, SAIC, that was acquired by Pfizer. Okay? Anyway, through Taggart, Martenson started pitching. Take a look at his channel. Martenson is like all these fraudsters. They jump on the biggest wave. Whatever's the biggest trend, they're going to jump on. Okay? So they can scam people. When the coronavirus pandemic, Martenson was all over that. Okay? With his disinformation. I even did an article, and someone wrote an article in the media about how he was fucking deceiving people, making money off that shit. Chris Martenson basically produces fear, We're running out of water, he tells everyone. We're running out of air, running out of land, running out of oil, everything. We have to conserve. In other words, he's for the depopulation. If you look into Chris Martenson, I've already exposed this guy many years ago. He's with groups that are funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, by the way. So for those of you who believe in this whole depopulation, Bill Gates conspiracy, there you go. And finally, he wrote some stupid book related to his resource depletion. It's basically a plagiarism from the population boom or whatever. The book in the 70s that predicted the same thing. This whole narrative is to sell gold, to scare everybody, stay out of the stock market, buy gold. Not only that, Chris Martenson and Adam Taggart were, once they scare you with their stupid nonsense, one-sided fucking doomsday videos, they tell you, oh, if you want a free portfolio review, you can get one from our screened advisors. Yeah, well, the only screening means that they've set up a financial relationship where they're getting a percentage of the assets that get transferred over, by the way. Adam Taggart realized he could do it on his own. He branched out a couple of years ago. He's got 2 channels now, Wealthy On and Thoughtful Money. Just take a look at the channels. Take a look at all the scammers he has on the channels. All fear-mongering, doomsday bullshit. Frauds! Folks, when I say I know the whole fucking shebang, I think you all realize that. I know the whole fucking... There's nobody that can come close to me on knowing these fraudsters, fucking delusional disinformation scammers. Who else do we have? Oh, Mike Pinto. Well, I exposed Pinto a long time ago. You can look into that. Complete fucking clown. This is a guy who missed the financial crisis, and so he wants to predict he writes a book on the bond bubble in 2013. The bonds are going to collapse. We're in a bond bubble. Never happened, Michael. He's also a gold pumper, fear-mongering, one of these Peter Schiff guys. The Fed's bad. Money's bad. Get out of the dollar. Go buy gold. Oh, really, Mike? Well, why are you running an investment firm then? Why do you have your own RIA and you're selling stocks? It's a bait and switch, you see? So, but you see, the whole doomsday thing gets him interviews. You understand? Same thing I talked about with Nomi Prince, another fraud. They promote all this shit so they can get in front of the dumb audience, and then they do a bait and switch. They're telling you, the stock market's bad. Buy gold. And then they're selling your stocks. Oh, come, I'm running And then we got Rick Rule again. We got this fucking clown. What's his name? Another fucking Bill Halter, another fucking gold pumping scammer. These guys are, folks, these are like the tenured guys from 15 years ago. There's some newer guys. Probably many of these guys are kind of newer on the scene. Who else? This guy, another one. Just go through the whole list, okay? Go through their channels. Go through Adam Taggart's channels, Chris Martenson. You'll see for yourself, okay? So without further ado, let me go ahead now. Don't want to spend too much time on this, but I got to give you guys a lesson on how to spot these whole scammers. Let me read you something, by the way, and I'm going to go over, you may have seen the video, hopefully you saw the video, on our friend Joseph Brown. Interesting last name. Related to Josh Brown, right? And his whole scam, his little trading scam. I'm going to go over that video. Make sure you all got the details. He wants to tell you some trading master, and he's really rich. He's making 10 figures every month, and he worked his way up through the industry, and he's making so much money. And the fact is, he worked at Charles Schwab, which tells me right there he's completely full of shit. Charles Schwab's a discount broker. They don't do none of that shit. Fucking discount broker. They don't know discount brokers, folks. I've talked about this before. They're on salary. Okay, salary and bonus. They don't do anything. They don't know anything. Okay. You're not going to get a knowledgeable broker at a discount broker. Okay? It's just never going to happen. Anyway, we'll go over that maybe another stream. Let's take a look now at this first video. And I stopped this on just to show you all some of the scam ads here. Okay, look at this blabbermouth guy. I should record this because I haven't seen this ad before. I'm assembling ads. I do it actually right now, but my screen recorder's not working. Something's wrong. So we'll go ahead and listen to this.
I strongly encourage you to start a bookkeeping business. That's right. If you're willing to learn how to use a free program called QuickBooks.
Free. It's free. Oh, I want it. Folks, when you hear free, run for the fucking hills. Okay? You're going to get fucked. Always. Write it down.
You can make 6 figures working part-time.
Oh, God. So anyway, here we go. Yeah, you better put a fucking disclaimer there, buddy. So let's take a look here. Every single gold buyer needs to hear this now. Okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to Capital Cosm. Today we've got fan favorite Andy Schectman back on.
Take a look at this guy. What a fucking clown. What's going on? Am I missing some type of a trend that's going on these days? You notice in the background he's got these. You all know what this is in the background, right? These are benzene rings. Okay. This is the shorthand nomenclature kind of for benzene. Now, of course, I'm a chemist by training, right? And so is this kind of a thing like, Kathy Wood does this, and we also have that janitor kid who does it too? Is that supposed to mean like you're intelligent? Well, you don't have a chemistry degree. What are you doing? I've got the chemistry degree. I've got the Ivy League Masters in Chemistry. I don't do that. You fucking fraud. You're fake. Isn't that kind of like the Ferrari in the background? Well, I'm really smart. I'm into science. I know a lot. I mean, come on. So the guy over here, losing his hair on the right, with these really, I guess, grandpa glasses. I mean, I guess it fits his age, but Andy Schectman. Now, it's kind of funny because I'd heard this name over the years. I hadn't really done much on the gold pumping scene. I pretty much destroyed it a long time ago, exposed the hell out of them for the whole scammers and frauds and disinfo agents that they are. My content, I've dispelled every single myth that they put out there to try and get you to buy gold. Let me be clear, and I'll talk about that here in a second. Andy Schectman, I didn't even realize it, but he is the owner of Miles Franklin. Miles Franklin, I guess I didn't realize it because he wasn't. I don't think he was promoting his company as much many years ago, but he's one of the biggest promoters over the past several years in terms of basically paying these content creators to post advertisements for him. Okay, I'll get to that here in a second. Let me be clear about gold. Be crystal clear. Now, gold is never a good long-term investment. It's that simple. Except maybe if you're in some complete shithole country. If you're in a shithole country, if you're in a third world country, maybe gold is something you might want to hold on to. Okay? To protect. And we're talking, it's funny, these guys, they talk about, protect your currency, to protect the dollar. Folks, the dollar is no problem. We're talking about protecting against, hyperinflation, which is impossible in America, by the way. Impossible. Write it down. Okay? Impossible. Gold as a long-term investment is shit for the most part if you are in a country that has viable investment alternatives. Okay? Now, it doesn't mean, gold as a short-term or intermediate-term investment. It can be part of an investment strategy. But as a long-term investment, forget it. And what I'm saying by that, that means no physical gold. Okay, we're talking about gold ETFs, be very careful, certain gold mining companies, blue chips basically, over certain periods. If you're hitting gold, if you're getting into gold when it's low, okay, when it's low. But you have to have an exit strategy. And that's why I recommended gold 18 years ago in my book, 2006, when gold was very low still. In fact, I was recommending gold when I was working on Wall Street, when I saw what I thought was the beginning of the bull market in 2001. I turned out to be correct. But I was recommending certain gold stocks related to that. I wasn't recommending physical gold. Physical gold, you're just funding the lifestyle of gold dealers, okay? But I also wrote about an exit strategy. You have to have an exit strategy in gold. And in fact, I started warning people about the gold pumping bubble that was being created in 2010, and I predicted gold would soar to $1,500 to $2,000, and then the bubble would pop, and it would stay low for many years. That's exactly what happened, by the way. Now, if you want to check into that, look up the article called Fool's Gold. There's 3 parts to it. I explain how gold should be positioned. I mean, they say people don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. More and more, as I review my research, it's looking like I have one. Okay. How did I know that? How did I know gold? And we can take a look at the chart right now if you want. Let's do that, actually. How did I know that gold was going to soar and then pop and stay low for many years? A couple of years before it happened. How did I know that? And once again, take a look at Fool's Gold. Just look it up. There's 3 parts. You can see it was published 2009, 2010. Let's see here. Take a look at gold. So how did I know that? How did I know that would happen? I mean, obviously, you don't know how high it's going to go. My guess of $1,500 to $2,000 was it was a guess. I think gold at the time was maybe like $800 or $900. Okay. How did I know that? Because I know how to spot bubbles, folks. I know how to spot bubbles. Okay. Got a lot of experience, a lot of success doing that. And it was pretty obvious to me there was a gold bubble going on. And I know how bubbles turn out. They pop. And what happens when a bubble pops? Oftentimes, you know what happens? There's a fucking blowout for a long time. Nobody wants it. Stays low. Not always, but oftentimes. And gold has a history of that. It happened back in the late 70s in 1980. After the gold bubble popped, what happened? Gold was at $800 or so in 1980, popped, and was at, within 6 months, it was $200 to $300 for 20 years. I want to remind you, let's take a look. Let me remind you guys of that in case you don't know the history of gold. See that? See that? Right when Doug Casey was on Phil Donahue, or telling everyone to put half their net worth into gold. Right at the top. That's right. You know how these guys are. They're all fucking contrarian indicators. You see that? Collapsed all the way down from this high of $850 to $300 within, I don't know, a year and a half or so. And take a look. For the longest time, take a look where it was. Take a look. 20 years later, and you were down 70%. You think you would have held it after this agony? It took you, basically, what? I guess almost 30 years to break even. And that's not even adjusted for inflation, by the way. You can look up an inflation adjusted chart and see it's going to be even longer. Okay. So you can see what happened. Let me go ahead and show you the more recent chart here. 20-year chart. I warned everybody, and that's exactly what happened. See that? What happened? Within 2 years, less than 2 years, gold had collapsed from a high of 2,000, almost 2,000, 1900 and change, all the way down to 1,200. Look at that. It stayed, 1,100, 1,200, 1,300 in that range for how many years? Up until 2019. That's a long time. You understand? Okay? Take a look. Fool's Gold. Take a look at it. I mean, folks, this is world-class shit you're hearing. Okay? World-class. Nobody else. Nobody else. So there's times to be in gold and times to be out of gold. My forecasting on gold has been extremely high. I'm probably the best in the world at forecasting gold. And FYI, I forecasted this bull market, and gold is going higher, no doubt about it. The problem is this. If you don't know when to exit, you can get stuck holding that fucking bag when it does empty. Where's gold going to be when it empties? I don't know where it's going to be. It's very difficult to know. Could it come back down below 2,000? Could it come and rest at 1,500 and, in a few years? Could it gradually get back down there and stay there for 10 years or 20? Yeah, it's possible. Of course it's possible. Okay? Gold is not going up because it's inflation, by the way. Gold is not a hedge against inflation. Not really. It's not any more of a hedge against inflation than rice. That rice is, or fucking cocoa, or any other commodity. Okay? It's not really a good hedge against inflation. That's another myth. But gold is going up because the Chinese are buying it. I mentioned that before. Okay? So, anyway, I wanted to give you some context on gold. The problem is that all these gold pumpers, they want you to buy it and never sell it. If you don't have an exit strategy with gold, it's very possible you could buy it at the wrong time, and when the bag empties, because it will empty, when it empties, and gold is sitting at, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 or whatever, it could stay there for many years when you need it. And guess what? Gold doesn't pay an income. There's no dividends. You're sitting on your ass collecting nothing. So gold is not a good long-term investment at all. At all. At least if you buy the gold ETS, it's liquid. You can get in and out quickly, easily. Okay? So never forget that. I wrote about this shit a long time ago. That's why I was banned by the alternative media, because the alternative media wants to pump the gold dealers. They don't want to hear about it's best to buy the ETFs and trade them, trade the volatility. They don't want to hear that. That's why Alex Jones banned me. You see? Piece of shit. So let's go ahead now that I gave you a little lesson on gold that you're never going to hear anywhere else, by the way, even though it's 100% fact, irrefutable. Show somebody that can refute that. Please bring me to the table someone who can refute what I just said. Please bring me to the table. You won't be able to find anyone. They'll run scared. Okay? You might find someone who's really that stupid, who actually, has Dunning-Kruger, right? And it's a lot of these guys. They have Dunning-Kruger. They overestimate their skill. Guess we lost. Okay, we're back now. So Miles Franklin, this company's paying these gold propagandists. They have their affiliate links and they advertise for Miles Franklin. It's a gold company. Okay. So think about it for a second. You've got a guy who's selling gold and he's paying people to promote disinformation on gold, disinformation on the economy, disinformation on the stock market. What do you think that makes Mr. Shechtman? Makes him a fucking con man. And perhaps more than that. Mr. Shechtman is indirect. He's passing the fucking buck. What a lot of these fucking scammers do, they pass the buck. They think if they're going through somebody else, they're not the one saying it. They're free and clear. No. You're funding disinformation in order to boost your sales. That makes you a fucking con man and arguably a fucking scammer. Mr. Shechtman. You can fucking tell him I said so too. Want to come up with me live on a neutral platform? Let's fucking go, buddy. Let's fucking go. Boom. These guys are all cowards. They work off disinformation, folks. And so that's what's going on, folks. Who do you think is funding these guys? You understand? It's the advertisement-based model. It's a scam. Ad-based content is a scam. How many times do I have to tell you guys? Advertisement-based content is a fucking scam. Why do you think YouTube loves putting in the algorithm scam artists like this Joseph Brown? These trading scammers. They love putting them in the algorithm. You know why? Because who do you think YouTube is advertising for? They're advertising for trading scammers. You understand? YouTube can make more money if they promote frauds who are pitching their own scammy system. You got it? Let's listen now. What this guy has to say.
On the show from Miles Franklin. Andy, my friend, how are you today?
I'm good, Danny. I'm good, brother. Thanks for having me back, man. Yeah, it's a crazy week last week. The one thing that really stuck out to me.
Before we continue, let's go ahead. I actually did a little search on him. let's take a look at Mr. Sheckman. We're not talking about one video or two. We're talking about a fucking plethora of videos. Dude, are you a gold dealer or a gold propagandist? You understand? And he's by no means the only person. I called out Peter Schiff for the same fucking scam a long time ago. Take a look. Take a look at the videos. This guy. Okay? Take a look. I mean, if I just scroll through, it's going to take a long time. Economic Ninja, this guy's a fraud, another gold pump. I already mentioned him, and that Joseph Brown. They have the little fucking, the big scam now is the conferences, right? The conference. We're gonna have a conference in Miami. They get people don't understand. YouTube cultivates cults. There's like cult formation. Like everyone has a cult now. Like the people that are subscribed to these, they're fucking in a cult. They don't get it. That's why they're holding these fucking events, because the people that follow them are in a cult. They believe they're bullshit. Folks, we live in a very dangerous era of deception, disinformation. You can just go through and look at all this. I mean, you can see where I am here, right? You see this? I'm at the very top. Look at this. Zzz. I mean, another fucking con man. This, what's his name? This is funny. Look, our dedicated team of experts inspired by renowned figures like Lynette Zhang. She's a fucking scam artist, disinfo, bullshit. I don't know this person. It's Sheckman. This guy is full of shit, complete con man. Oh, what's his name? I can't remember. Folks, at best, people who pump gold are just ignorant idiots. At worst, and most of the time, they're scammers. Okay? You can just go down the list. All the videos this guy's been in. Has to be, well, easily hundreds, maybe even thousands. Okay? Never, ever, ever listen to the salesman. If a guy's trying to sell you something, don't listen to what he has to say about that something. You understand? It's kind of common sense, right?
Danny, about last week is that it happened on a Monday morning. And I think that's kind of emblematic of what we should expect to see in the future. Most of the things that concern me outside the United States are happening on the other side of the world, where Sunday morning or Sunday night is Monday morning. Right. And I think you wake up to a new reality. And just like we woke up to see the yen collapsing and the ramifications and reverberations that it had, it goes to the thought of being prepared and doing so in a proactive.
So you see what's going on? Look at this guy. Oh, sorry, I stopped it there accidentally. So you hear what's going on? So we have to highlight the issues. Why? Because gold is associated with fear, right? So he wants to talk about protecting yourself, things going on in the world. And of course, folks are going to always talk about, when you hear these conspiracies about the BRICS, right? I mean, this has been going on. Some of you don't even fucking realize this. This whole shit about Russia and Brazil and China uniting their currency to defeat the dollar dominance. They've been saying this shit for 15 fucking years. Okay? So let's go ahead and listen to what's
active fashion. And I think whatever is in store for us, if it emanates from around the world, there will be no time to react, no time to.
You see that? So he's kind of putting a sense of urgency. Gosh, I better have my gold. I better get my gold because the whole world's falling apart.
To pivot, it will happen on a Monday morning and bang, there you go. And, there's something called Operation Sandman that people should Google, and I can't speak to the veracity of it. Buddy of mine named Mike Adams, the health ranger, smart dude.
Whoa.
He talked.
You hear this?
No time to pivot.
You hear this?
It will happen on a Monday morning and bang, there you go. And, there's something called Operation Sandman that people should Google, and I can't speak to the veracity of it. Buddy of mine named Mike Adams, the
There you go. You are guilty, sir. You are a fucking scammer. The end. Mike Adams, his buddy. He's promoting Mike. You all know Mike Adams. Mike Adams is an absolute fucking fraud. He goes by the Health Ranger. Complete scam artist. He was aligned with Alex Jones until I think they got into competition because Mike Adams is one of these guys that sells nutritional supplements. You heard me talk earlier about supplements, right? The whole industry is filled with fucking scammers and false claims. Not to mention a large percentage, if not the vast majority, of all nutritional supplements are produced, guess where? In China. Guess what that means? That means they're under no real supervision, and that means you can face ill health effects or toxicity because the FDA does at least eventually go around and inspect the facilities to make sure they are under compliance of GMC standards. Okay. They can't do that in China. It's too difficult. Okay. So we're talking about the supplements industry is a scam on two fronts. False claims. Most of the supplements are placebos. Placebos. They do nothing. It's in your fucking head. And the second is they're actually dangerous because of the production standards, the toxicity. Okay. So anyway, this guy is friends, as he admits, friends with Mike Adams. Mike Adams is an absolute fraud, absolute scam artist. He's a fucking quack. He's one of the worst. And the sad thing, it's scary. And if you thought that alternative media was different than mainstream media, then you're not paying attention. I mentioned this a long time ago. It's the same. You think it's different, but it's basically the same. And it's controlled by the same cabal. Mike Adams was promoted by Dr. Oz. I mean, Mike Adams is about as low as you can get in terms of conspiracy, disinfo fucking scammer. He's probably, I mean, you could argue he's even worse than Alex Jones, which I don't know. That's kind of hard to fathom, but they're certainly on the same level. Okay. So that tells me this guy is in cahoots with Mike Adams. There you have it, folks. Wild, baseless conspiracies, complete horseshit. Why? To get you to buy iodine because the radiation is going to kill you out there. That's what they were doing, selling that shit when Fukushima happened, making all these false claims, right? To buy this, to buy that. Once again, folks, anybody who's funding their operations, their media operations through supplements, you better believe they're disinfo. Joe Rogan, he sells supplements, disinfo. Okay, and I talked about in a video you may have seen recently on Joseph Brown, Heresy Financial. He mentioned his number one thing that caused him to quit the 9-to-5 job was reading Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, which is a fraudulent book, complete fraud. I'm going to cover Tim Ferriss. Hey Tim, come at me, bitch. Guaranteed you won't fucking confront me on a neutral platform live. He's a fraud. Tim Ferriss is a fucking fraud. He's a Tony Robbins-like fraud. Fake book, fake reviews, and he sold the dream. I know his story very well because I uncovered the digital nomad scam more than 10 years ago. And that book is what launched it. All these fucking idiots out there, remote work. In that book, by the way, it tells people to basically fake being an expert, just to lie, to sell products. Okay? I'll get to Ferriss in the future. I've been meaning to expose him, but there's so much on the guy. It's kind of a big, I'll get to him eventually. But my point is, these guys are all connected, folks. They're all connected. And the kingpins of these guys, once again, you're talking Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins has fueled this vast universe of scammers, from these older guys to the younger guys, to the Graham Steffens, Kevin Pathras. I'm telling you right now, I've known this for a long time. I warned about the overall big picture impact of Tony Robbins. He's fueling future generations of scammers. Anyway, Mike Adams, look into him. Complete fucking quack. This guy aligns with him. That tells you right there. There you go. Promoting nonsense to sell products. Okay.
The Health Ranger, smart dude.
He's real smart. Yeah, he's real smart. What's his degree in? Where did he go to school? No, he's not a smart guy. He's a con man. You're just a dummy.
Talks about it all the time. And in essence, it's 150 or so countries that have agreed, supposedly, to dump treasuries and U.S. dollars all at once at a certain point. And if that were to happen,
you hear this bullshit, folks?
They're going to do it on a Sunday night, Monday morning.
It doesn't matter. Let me explain something. See, this is the thing. The disinfo takes over. Most people don't understand basics. Folks, it doesn't matter. If you don't understand that by now, then you forgot what happened during the pandemic, the lockdown. Okay? They can all dump treasures. It doesn't matter. The Fed can soak them up. It doesn't fucking matter. When you print your own currency, you're in a position of complete control over your destiny. Okay? These countries that get in trouble, they don't print their own currency or they don't borrow money denominated in their own currency. You understand? Argentina is in hyperinflation because they don't borrow money or issue debt in their own currency. They issue debt in dollars. Okay? Same thing with Venezuela, so on and so forth. I mean, people, why aren't you all hearing this basic stuff? Because it doesn't pay money. You understand? That's what I'm talking about, folks. All these people are frauds. You're only hearing what puts money in their pocket, which is fucking disinformation. And you got this guy now floating out there, this stupid conspiracy. All the countries are planning to dump treasuries. Okay, so what? Who cares? It's not going to do anything. U.S. economy is still going to dominate. Stock market's still going to fucking soar. Shut your mouth. You're a con man.
Morning over there, we wake up to chaos. So I think that's something that people should think about is that if you're waiting for validation in anything you're doing regarding the U.S. dollar or the markets, I think you have to be proactive. You have to trust your gut. And sometimes you have to make.
Okay, folks, you've been hearing about this dollar is going to collapse, hyperinflation for how long? I've been hearing about it for 15 years, 20 years. Okay, well, I'll tell you what happened. A funny thing happened on the way to quantitative easing. Let me show you a little chart here. Actually, what am I doing? Let's take a look at the dollar index since the financial crisis. What's happened? Let's take a look and see the dollar. Everyone's scared of the dollar. The dollar's going to collapse. You're scared. Folks, you don't need to worry about the currency of the strongest economy, the strongest country in the world. Okay? I can guarantee you, when the dollar has a problem, a big problem, you're talking about a huge problem around the world. Okay? That's fact. Let's take a look here. Get a chart. I mean, have you all bothered, if you heard this nonsense, you all ever bothered to pull up a chart of the dollar? This is U.S. dollar index. Take a look. Long-term chart here. Dollar's going to be down recently. Just because of what's going on. Interest rates are going to come down. Other countries have already started. But let's take a look at that. This is a 20-year chart. The 20-year chart. See that? 20-year chart. Let me get rid of this thing here. See that? 20-year chart. Does it look weak to you? What do you think? Take a look at every other currency. Take a look at the euro. Should I pull up the euro? You're going to see the opposite. You understand what I'm talking about? You understand these guys are full of shit. Disinfo. He's trying to scare people to buy gold.
Make these moves before it's obvious.
Now you may say, well, he's not saying that. Folks, you got to understand. People that in this whole cult, they know the song and dance. They know the lines. They've been listening to all this nonsense over and over again. In any one particular video, you may not hear the specific words, but take a look at the summation of the videos. Okay? You can, read between the lines.
And you know something? There's a whole school of investing ideology around this. It's called wave theory, human emotions, Elliott wave, Kondraty.
There we go. Another fucking con. You want to look at one, aside from Martin Armstrong, the second worst, and he's very close, worst market forecaster that I've seen in history, Robert Prechter. who promotes Elliott wave. Folks, there's no fucking waves. It's all a bunch of bullshit, okay? In terms of predicting, using waves to predict markets and stuff like that. There's a bunch of horse shit, okay? That's a dumb man's approach.
Wave where the reason so few people ever really succeed in investing, in my opinion, Danny, is because they do it after the herd. They base their decisions on emotion rather than logic. And logic can sometimes be difficult to do when you notice an inequity, but yet you might be the only one who notices it. No one else is talking about it. They say you're crazy, and yet you're not. So I think that's a good way to start this conversation, is that, to me, you can call gold and silver wealth, as I do, not an investment, but another way of looking at it as insurance against irresponsible fiscal policy, brain-dead monetary policy, and against the fact that this current administration, and this isn't even a comment on Trump versus Biden.
You see, there we go, folks. Gold is insurance. And by the way, I mentioned this. I made a video about this about maybe 10 years ago, or even before then. I said, look, all the gold pumpers were talking about gold. Gold's insurance. It's insurance, because what happened was, see, you all don't, let me put this into perspective, because you probably don't know. I know the details of all this stuff because I was seeing it, living it, breathing it. After gold collapsed, you saw the chart. After it collapsed, 2011, 2012, 13, it was down. People lost their ass. The gold pumpers were trying to revive the propaganda, the manipulation, to get the suckers to buy it again. And so what they were doing is they were saying, well, gold is insurance and gets a collapse. It's not, don't think of it as to make a lot of money. This was after, of course, all the gold kingpins were telling you gold was going to $5,000 and $10,000 an ounce back in 2008 and 2009. And silver is going to, Mike Maloney said silver is going to $500, right? So their whole scam was to basically sell the idea that gold is insurance. And I pointed out, wait a second, you can't call gold insurance. I mean, this guy is a gold dealer, and he's saying gold is insurance. Insurance is a financial product. Insurance is regulated as a financial product in each state. Insurance has specific criteria, it has specific properties to it. It's a legal guarantee. You understand? They are misappropriately using, and in this case, this guy, this gold pumping con man, is misappropriately using the term insurance. Okay, it's not insurance. Who's backing you up on that? There is no backing. You understand? This is a typical disinformation, mind control that these guys push out there to typically what, these the gold bugs are typically low IQ, poorly educated people. That's typically what you have, by the way.
Or red versus blue. It's about being an American, and this current administration has done more, I believe, to harm this country than any external foe ever would have done.
I will not fucking watch advertisements.
Need hosting that works.
Fuck you. This Ray Dalio is advertising for his stupid fucking principles bullshit. I'm going to expose that. Ray Dalio.
The worst part is that in my shoes, most people don't.
If you think Ray Dalio's got any credibility, you don't know about it. Ray Dalio is telling everybody back in 2018, 2019, how China's going to take over the world. Okay? China's fucking going nowhere. Fucking clown.
I'm not.
Good point there on the lag effect between emotion and logic. Because as human beings, we feel
irresponsible fiscal policy, brain-dead monetary policy, and against the fact that this current administration, and this isn't even a comment on Trump versus Biden or red versus blue. It's about being an American, and this current administration has done more, I believe, to harm this country than any external foe ever would have done. And I'll be shocked if there's not some sort of ramifications far greater than just a one-day blip in the Nikkei to yet to rear its head. So I hope I'm wrong, but I have a feeling I'm not.
Good point there on the lag effect between emotion and logic. Because as human beings, we feel emotion before our before prefrontal cortex takes over from our limbic side. But we do seem to be entering the stage where black swans are white swans, meaning expect the unexpected, expect black swans, which is what we saw last week with the yen carry trade unwind. Let's just start off with that. Is the worst over in that regard, or is this kind of a dead cat bounce? How do you see it playing out, Andy?
Well, I mean, look, when that happened, right, you had Jeremy Siegel, come on, the talking head, and almost crying on CNBC saying we need an emergency Federal Reserve meeting and 150. Jeremy Siegel, he's another one of the cabal guys. He's a scam artist, by the way. He's fucking clueless, but he gets promoted. It observes these would probably be very popular with investors worldwide. From the start of the floating currency era in 1971 to the present, a gold bond paying 4% would have outperformed every single stock and bond market worldwide.
Wow.
And so
did you hear that? See, I don't want to go through. I mean, I don't want to torture myself and everybody and waste time going through these videos, but we just found a little clip here. That's what I'm saying. You just go through this. You can see, there's all types of disinformation. Great example. Did you hear that? Let's listen to that again. Listen to that again. Popular with investors worldwide. From the start of the floating currency era in 1971 to the present, a gold bond paying 4% would have outperformed every single stock and bond market worldwide.
Wow.
A gold bond paying 4%. I don't know what a gold bond is, but I mean, this is just complete horseshit. A gold bond, right? Anything to pump gold. I don't know. But since over that time, I'd say the S&P average with dividends probably about 10%, okay, annually. Let's hear.
And the next exit's not for a long while, and I don't know what that exit looks like. So I get your point, but I don't think it happens.
Right. I mean, to your point, I mean, even in Russia, if you open up a school textbook in Russia, it'll say that the 2020 elections in the United States were stolen. That's what they think over there in Russia. And I'm sure
perception's reality too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I agree with you, man. And that's the point. Whether it's true or not, appearance is everything.
Yep. So we have this 120% debt to GDP ratio, but as my recent guest Martin Armstrong put it,
Martin Armstrong, there you go, folks. Complete fraud. Write it down. This guy is like the master of. He's the master of obfuscation. He is a complete. This guy creates fucking fake accounts, writes shit all over the place. Martin Armstrong is an absolute fraud. All you gotta do, you can look into it, and it's scary who trusts this guy, who believes this guy. And once again, they're all in the same circle.
That ratio can go as high as it needs to, as long as there's someone else out there buying our debt to service the old debt, right? Now, you did bring up Operation Sandman. I want you to kind of expand on that for a second. If you were one of these, if you were a part of this group, let's say, that wanted to tank the bond market and just dump all the treasury, all the bonds off at once, how would you when would be the perfect time in your eyes? Like, put your mind in the shoes of of a bad guy, for lack of a better term.
Well, I'd first start by slowly selling treasuries and reinvesting them in commodities. Isn't that what's happening right now? When you look at the BRICS countries, they're shedding treasuries at a massive rate. China at one point had close to $3 trillion, and now they're down to $700 billion.
So this is what, now keep in mind, this is the whole narrative that was going around about 15 years ago, 14 years ago. For several years, you had all the gold pumping fraudsters telling you China's selling U.S. securities, they're dumping U.S. treasuries. We're waiting for this to be connected. It's a complete lie. Now, right now, China is selling treasuries, okay? They're selling treasuries for specific reasons. It has nothing to do with some attack on America. They're selling treasuries first and foremost because they want to buy gold. So the Chinese central bank is buying gold, as are the citizens, for a couple of different reasons. The Chinese central bank is buying gold because they know their currency is fucking worth nothing. And they're, at some point, they're not going to be able to fend off a collapse in their currency. So they're buying gold. This is what folks, central banks buy gold short term. They buy gold short term. Currency goes down. They sell the gold and they buy the currency when it's down. This is the only reason why central banks buy gold. They buy gold and they sell gold. That's what they do. But you don't hear the truth about this from these gold bugs, these gold charlatans. So China is selling securities because they have a financial problem, a huge crisis going on, and they're buying gold to, and of course, they don't have as much incentive to own U.S. Treasuries now because the trade is dwindling. They only were holding U.S. Treasuries because it was more convenient for them due to the trade with the U.S. So aside from all that, it doesn't matter. China can sell all the U.S. Treasuries they want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay? That's the point. But they want to make you think it's doomsday. Why is it that typically only Americans are the ones that believe all this bullshit about these conspiracies about all these countries being strong and America being weak? No country in the world can remotely fucking touch America. From a technological standpoint, from a military standpoint, from an educational standpoint, higher educational standpoint, you understand. America is the dominant country. It's the only superpower. So, these guys, it's just amazing to me. If you want to pitch gold, move to fucking China. Move to Brazil. Move to some other developing country and pitch the idea of doom in those countries. But you see, they couldn't do that. You know why? Because they'll get arrested. They'll be thrown in jail. That's right. You didn't know that, did you? Did you know that? Most of these countries, non-Western countries, you can't do this. It's considered terrorism. And I believe in America it should be considered terrorism, domestic terrorism. Right? If you look at the domestic terrorism laws, what they cover, these doomsday guys trying to get people to sell dollars, to not invest in the stock market. If they're American, they're domestic terrorists, as far as I'm concerned. But you can't say this. If you're living in China, if you're living in Brazil, if you're living in some of these other, you can't come out and say all these things about Brazil. You'll get in trouble. You understand? So why would America allow it? You think America cares? These guys aren't going to do anything. The U.S. dollar is backed by the U.S. military. It's backed by the taxing authority of the U.S. government, which is the strongest taxing authority for a large country in the world. Okay? That's a fact. And the U.S. prints its own fucking currency. And as I mentioned before in another live stream, why do you think Japan's debt to GDP has been over 250% for a long time and they don't face any type of sovereign debt crisis? Do you know why? Japan is facing a lot of issues. Not just that. They're facing a demographic collapse, which is a major problem. But why has their currency their debt, why hasn't their debt collapsed? Why haven't they defaulted on their debt? Because the vast majority of their debt is held internally. Okay? That's the key. Japan prints their own currency, and Japan issues their own yen-denominated debt. That's the key. You're not going to ever hear that by these common because they're too stupid, or they wouldn't tell you anyway, because they want to sell you doom. And I guess you're not going to hear it from people who know about this because it doesn't benefit them. They're not making any money telling the truth. You see, that's the sad reality.
Slowly exiting the treasuries. They're slowly exiting the U.S.-based investments in that respect.
It doesn't matter. Wait a second. Why don't you talk about the mass exodus of capital from China? Mass exodus of foreign capital from China. Why don't you talk about that? Folks, if you believe any of this stuff from these gold pumpers, you've got some problems in you. You've got rocks in your fucking head. Okay? You've got rocks in your head. And I'm going to show you a comment here a little bit later.
And you're seeing a group of countries in the BRICS that are 59 countries more have formally applied. There's 10 there already.
Here we go. And they're going to unite and do this. It doesn't matter, folks. It doesn't matter. It's all a bunch of horse shit. Don't listen to this garbage. Okay. Let's move on now. This guy's rambling too much. This is an hour video. Let's go on to our favorite contrarian indicator, Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff, and then we'll wrap it up here, and I'll probably do another one on the trading scammers. Let's see, where's Peter? Is it here? The con artist here. Now, let me just kind of show you something with Peter. It's kind of interesting. If you all familiar with Peter, actually, you know what? I'm not going to. I am not going to. This is not. I'm going to give you. Here's the secret, by the way. Here's a secret to avoid ads, because you can, even if you get an ad blocker on, they'll have pop-ups. It's quite simple, folks. Go to ScamTube and don't log in. You notice I'm not logged in here? You see that? If you're not logged in, they won't play ads for you because the ads can no longer be targeted. You see? Let's take a look now. Peter Schiff, the Peter Schiff Show.
The Peter Schiff Show.
So I want you to listen to Peter here. Listen carefully.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Indeed. Indeed knows hiring needs to be cost effective when you're running your own business. Start hiring now with a 70.
What a fucking loser. What a shameless money worshiper. Hey, Peter, you're shameless. I mean, I wouldn't even do this. Like, Peter, do you worship money? You'll do anything for money. What a fucking whore. You understand? What a fucking piece of shit. Folks, when you have a person like this, and I pointed out with Patrick O'Leary, same thing. What does that tell you about this person? This person is a money worshiper. They have no integrity, no shame. It's all about getting the money. Are you going to listen to a person that's that overwhelmingly fixated on money that he's willing to like whore himself out for some stupid little commercial? You understand? Now, some of you say, well, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. If you don't get it, then sorry. Go back to fucking school. Get some sense in your head.
$5 sponsored job.
If you're
So what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at his eyes and listen to his speech pattern.
kids were allowed to grade their own report cards, and then they brought them home to show you what a good job they were doing at school.
Now, you should compare maybe from 10 years ago or so. He seems a little lackluster there, right? I believe, my opinion that Peter Schiff is intoxicated. Okay? I believe he's intoxicated most of the time these days when he is talking. You say, well, what are you talking about? His speech is not slurred. Well, I believe Peter is a functioning alcoholic. FYI. Just FYI. That's just my belief. I could be wrong, but that's what it appears to me based upon me knowing and observing him, how he talks his speech over the years. I think it's just kind of interesting. If it's this case, Peter, I hope you get help. You don't want to have any liver damage, but
the government should not be calculating inflation when the government A, creates the inflation, but B, has a vested interest in underreporting that inflation to the public. So you always take the CPI with a grain of salt. In fact, if you want to get a more accurate measure, just as a rule of thumb, double whatever number the government reports, and that's probably a lot closer to.
So you hear this horse shit? So the video, this was released, you can see, just a few hours ago. Inflation data supports rate hikes, not rate cuts. This is what you would expect from a contrarian indicator, Peter Schiff, who's been absolutely wrong about just about everything for a very, very long time. And I'm talking well over a decade, perhaps 2 decades. Everything. When you all don't know this, but I do. I've got the whole track record on this guy. So we have encouraging inflation data that was reported just a couple of days ago. And of course, Peter wants to tell you that this data is supportive of rate hikes, not cuts, which tells you anyone that believes this stuff that's got mental illness. Now, you can read the comments. We'll go ahead and take a look here. shortly. Let me just go ahead and play this, see what he has to say.
To the
And by the way, you heard what he just said. Double the CPI, and that's closer to what the real inflation is. Does Peter know that? No. Has he calculated what he thinks real inflation is? No. It's just complete Alex Jones type conspiratorial horseshit, which explains why Peter Schiff is the unofficial financial advisor on the Alex Jones show. That's right. He makes regular appearances on the Alex Jones show because makes sense. His complete nonsense, conspiratorial horseshit.
Actual number than the number that is released. But before I talk about the CPI that came out today,
let me refresh your memory here on Peter Schiff in case you've forgotten. In case you've forgotten, this is Peter Schiff telling you about the dollar collapsing, buy the euro, hyperinflation.
The whole idea is to get out of the U.S. dollar, to get out of a currency that is on the verge of collapse. Because the people who don't get out, that think they're playing it safe, that don't want to take any risk, so they keep their money in the dollar, they are going to be broke. They're going to be completely broke, and that is obvious. It's obvious to me that that's what's going to happen. And this is pure inflation, Latin American style. This is hyperinflation. This is Zimbabwe. This is the identical monetary policy. This is what the Weimar Republic did, and we're going to have the same result. And I am 100% convinced.
You see this chart, by the way. I showed this chart because with Robert Kiyosaki, I did a video exposing Robert Kiyosaki had Schiff on his show, I don't know, a year ago or so. Yeah, no, 2 years. Yeah, few years ago. You can see September 20th, 2020. Of course, that was when the gold was peaking because of during a crisis, gold will soar, right? You can see it's peaking out. Robert Kiyosaki told everyone, Peter, I bought your gold. I bought your gold fund. And you can see what happened to the gold fund after that. It collapsed. See that? It's kind of funny. But it's expected. These people, folks, the easiest way to do well is do the opposite of what they say, of what they recommend. I'm telling you right now. It's funny as hell. Anyway.
And I am 100% convinced that anybody who has their
Peter Schiff's mutual funds versus the S&P
wealth in U.S. dollars will be just as broke as the people who have their money with Madoff. It's not going to matter. It is going to be destroyed. And I don't know how much time you have. With the dollar dropping 5% a week at this point, I don't know. Could the dollar snap back a little bit? Sure, of course. But what if it keeps falling? What if it's down 5% next week and 5% the week after that? And then what if it drops 10% and another 10%? Who knows? At some point, a year or two from now, the dollar could be dropping 5% a day. The inflation rate in Zimbabwe is over 100 million% per year. I can't even calculate what that is. But you know what? It didn't start off that bad. The dollar is now sinking on its own weight, and it's going to drop like a stone. And, there's not a lot of time.
You hear that, folks? You hear that? All the telltale signs of a con. Urgency, rush to urgency. Right? You hear you hear all these. I'm still wondering how Peter Schiff is still licensed to work in the industry saying these things. You all probably don't know. Okay? He should have been barred from the industry a long time ago for this type of stuff. But, he's chosen. You understand. You understand what I'm saying. Okay? Telling people that the dollar's basically worthless. He's calling gold money. Telling people if they have dollar. And you have to understand, when people are hearing this and they're believing this stuff, they're worried about the stock market too, U.S. stock market, because what's it denominated? It's denominated in U.S. dollars, folks. If anyone ever tells you dollar's going to collapse. Okay, and we're not talking about, dollar. All currencies go up and down. Okay, that's normal. But these people are talking about, imminent collapse, massive collapse. They're even saying that it's worthless. These people are talking about fiat currency being worthless. Peter Schiff has said that many times. All these gold pumpers say fiat currency is worthless. It's worth nothing. It's just paper, right? Think about that. So if the U.S. dollar is worthless, what do you think that's going to do to the world's greatest, largest, most dominant, most powerful companies, the vast majority of which are from America? Because they're all dollar denominated. You understand? So, I mean, these guys are complete scam artists, liars. They're pieces of shit. That's what they are. And Peter Schiff is today. This is a man who was telling everyone hyperinflation, and of course, everybody repeated his whole line. All these gold pumpers, hyperinflation, to scare people. I'm the only person in the world that has called out all this bullshit. Okay, starting back 16, 17 years ago. They all know who I am, and they all fear me, rightfully so. Okay, when you're a liar and a con artist and a scam artist, you're going to fear the truth. Let's listen to what Peter says here.
I think it was yesterday or the day before, but we got the numbers for the July deficit. And this is a lot more important as an indicator of inflation than the official reports that measure prices. Because where is the source of inflation? Why do we have inflation? We have inflation because the government has to create money. The Federal Reserve expands the money supply. Why does it do that? Well, it does that to finance deficit spending. The government doesn't collect enough in taxes.
He doesn't know what he's talking about, folks. So basically he's saying, well, we have inflation because there's more money printing because we can't pay our bills. It doesn't work that way. Ding dong. The government issues bonds. They don't print money and throw it out there for everybody. They issue bonds. Investors buy those bonds. Investors invest in U.S. treasuries. That's how we finance our budget deficits. We create more treasuries. You understand? That's the deal. And he wants to make you think that increasing of the money supply there's a direct linear relationship between that and inflation. That's absolute disinformation. It's false. Absolute false. And when I tell you this, of course, this is just one example. There's so many folks, I'm telling you, all these guys are full of shit. There's so much disinformation. Just about every line that comes out of their mouth is exaggerated or untrue. When I tell you this, because this is the common thought out there, most people are under the impression, because they've been hearing it for the longest time, that increase in the money supply increases inflation. It's absolutely not true. Okay? All the gold bugs, all the gold pumpers are going to tell you that. It's not true. Increasing the money supply does not necessarily lead to inflation. It can, but it doesn't have to. So think about it for a second. By the way, we had a huge increase in the money supply after the financial crisis, did we not? We had the TARP bailout, banking bailout, then we had quantitative easing for the better part of a decade. Let's call it 8 years, 7 years, 6 years, right? Depending upon when you want to measure. But let's just call it the better part of a decade, just roughly, okay? We had quantitative easing. That was so-called money printing, right? Right. So what happened? Did we have inflation? No, not at all. Not at all. The inflation that we are coming out of now has maybe a little bit to do with the stimulus, but it has a lot to do with the supply chain issues and other things, the war, Russia, Ukraine, right? Let me explain to you all why, and you probably never heard this before, that money supply is not necessarily directly correlated to inflation. And I want you to tell Peter Schiff, email him, and you can tell him anytime he wants to fucking go up against me, he won't do it. All Peter does is when he comes across someone who's going to expose him, he wants to threaten you with a lawsuit. You go fuck yourself, Peter. Peter, Neutral platform, live, you won't do it, guaranteed. I will donate $20,000 to the charity of your choice. I will donate $20,000 to the charity of your choice if you meet me live for 1 hour debate, neutral platform, live. That's it. He won't do it. He won't do it because he hides from the truth. That's how he makes his money. That's how all these guys make their money, folks. Disinformation. Okay? And all these people that interview them, promote them, they never call them out. They're disgusting scammers. They are accomplices. All of them. Let them know that. You can tell Peter Schiff anytime he wants to meet me, I'll treat him nice. But he will never do it. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. It sickens me that you have people like Peter Schiff, and folks, this is part of the media scam. It doesn't matter who you look at, who you consider, whether it's Jim Rogers or Harry Dent or Mark Faber, so on and so forth. Take a look at the media, and you're seeing it on YouTube now with Meet Kevin, Graham Stephan. Notice they're all kind of related, by the way. They're all making the money at your expense, at the expense of the audience, and you let them get away with it. It's a big fucking problem. I have a problem when people are they're creating wealth for themselves out of the misery, out of the misfortune of other people. And that's what Peter Schiff has done. He's earned not a single fucking penny that he has. Not a single fucking penny. He's gotten that through promotion, through undeserved promotion by his buddies. He's the big poster child for the gold pumping syndicate. But this whole thing, how it works, folks, it comes and goes. Okay? It comes and goes. Like I said, ad-based content, you better figure it out. Ad-based content. Now, you people that can't figure it out, you're the same people using Facebook and think there's no problem. I mean, can you imagine if you're still using Facebook after this whole election fraud and all that? I mean, after all of the identity theft, you're officially stupid. You're officially fucking stupid. The end. I was warning people about Facebook 15 years ago.
And so the difference has to be created out of thin air.
Let me finish, by the way. Let me give you the explanation why the money supply, there's not a definitive direct correlation between that and inflation. It's quite simple. It's quite simple, folks. What determines inflation? What's the main determinant of inflation? Is it government spending? Wrong. It's consumer spending, right? Consumers, that's what determines inflation. Are consumers, are they spending more money for goods? Are the prices increasing? They're having to spend more money, right? It's what consumers are paying, right? The price that consumers pay, that is the determinant of inflation. That's all that matters. That's the question that has to be asked. That's why the inflation data, what does it show? What's the inflation data show every month? They show a basket of goods that consumers are buying, and they're showing the price increase and decrease. It's not about fucking money supply. Because someone say, well, it's the same. No, it's not. Where's that money going? You don't know where the money is going. Just because the money is increasing in circulation, it's not necessarily getting into the hands of the consumers. And that's what happened during quantitative easing, by the way. The money that was released during quantitative easing, by and large, did not reach the hands of the consumers. Guess where it went? It went into financial firms. It went into private equity firms. Do you not remember how all these private equity firms were buying up real estate? Did you not hear about that? You got all this corporate housing now because of the financial crisis. The years after that, private equity firms went in there and they bought up all this housing, including not just multifamily. We're talking single units, single dwelling. They bought up all this housing because they had credit on the cheap. You understand? And now we're seeing, in part, some of that ramification because of this situation, in part, which you don't hear about. Inflation is determined by what prices consumers are paying. Okay? It's consumer spending. That's what matters. What are consumers paying for goods and services? That's inflation. That's how inflation is defined. Anyone that defines inflation otherwise, by some other definition, doesn't understand the most basic economics. Okay? It's just a fact. Okay? When you hear about inflation reporting, what do you see? What's the BEA report? What's the Bureau of Economic Analysis release? Here's what they release. Okay? They release a basket of goods. Here's what people are paying. Here's the price increase and decrease. They don't fucking release anything about money supply in terms of inflation data because there's no direct predictable correlation. The only thing we know is consumers who fuel the majority of the economy, they're the ones who determine whether there's inflation based upon the prices that they're paying. It's that simple. Okay? So you can explain this now to any of these fucking gold bugs, because they clearly don't know what the fuck they're talking about, because they've been guided, they've been steered into the gutter with typical mythology and disinformation promoted by guys like Peter Schiff and his whole cabal of gold pumpers. Okay? With that, I'm going to end this now. I'm going to do one more stream. I'm going to talk about our friend Heresy Financial. I'm going to go over that video, get into more detail, and talk more about these trading scam artists.